Hey guys, Chase with Inline Warehouse here. I'm at Revision Hockey in Huntington Beach with the product development manager, Jordan. First off, thanks for having us here. We're gonna see how your new flex wheel is made from top to bottom, but before we start hopping into that, what makes it so unique?
Well, the flex wheel is our most complicated hockey wheel. And what makes it so unique is that it has different durometers in an asymmetrical pattern on the inner core so that it flexes more in one direction than the other. This allows you to do what we call micro tuning to your setup, so you can have a firmer or softer grip on the inside versus the outside, depending on your riding preference or style.
Gotcha. Well, let's hop into the first step here. Let's see how this is made. What are we gonna find first?
Well, first off, every wheel needs a base. We call that the core, which is made out of an injection mold thermopolyurethane material, TPU, as well as a glass blend. So we put fiberglass in these cores to keep the rigidity firm. Okay. And then on top of that, we have a secondary injection molded part, which is a flexible TPU that goes over the core so that it creates this dual durometer sensation. But the flex wheel differs from most by casting a liquid urethane around that soft injection part. So we have a cast urethane over an injection urethane over a thermopolyurethane core. You've got this wheel that has properties that are unmatched by any other wheel in the hockey industry. So from there, we trim it, and we have to clean these things because there's mold release all over it. And cleaning allows us to print on both sides. It ensures bonding from this step to the casting of the actual wheel.
Okay.
And it allows us to lock in that print as well. So printing both sides of this inner flex band goes back into and through our casting process, where we cast the soft outer urethane to lock everything in and create one of the best wheels on the market.
And then, so we were talking about micro tuning, and you could do that two different ways, right? I mean, obviously we have the asymmetrical pattern on the inside, but you know, if you're getting, you know, the hard, the soft wheels, how do you change those properties?
Well, so we have a softer, a firm, and an extra firm setup here. And what that means is there's a different combination of urethanes on the inner core with this torus, which is different hardness from the flex side, which is different hardness from the outside. And since it's off center, it allows it to flex more in one direction, because the softer the urethane, the more it compresses. Therefore, it'll flex more in one direction than the other, so that you can ensure you're gonna have more grip.
Right.
More flex, more grip.
Gotcha. So. And then opposite, you get the more speed.
Exactly,
On the other side.
yeah. The other side is gonna stay vertical and then allow you to get a higher roll speed out of the same urethane.
And that's a little bit more of a traditional, that's how you would kind of feel like a traditional wheel, correct?
Yeah, more so. The firm side would be more traditional, yes.
And so as we've been walking around today, I mean, there's so many people touching the wheel. Compared a flex wheel to a traditional wheel, how many hands are actually going to touch this today?
Goodness. Our most basic two-component wheel, just core and urethane, it's at least touched by a dozen people before it gets out our door.
Wow.
Flex wheel, going through all these steps, as complicated as it is, you're looking at least 16 to 18 people touching every single wheel before it goes out our door.
And we see quality control really handled a handful of times, more than your traditional two-piece or two-component. What are a couple of the steps that you guys take to make sure that every wheel that you're sending out is ready to roll?
Every time we cast through a casting process, there's mold release all over the urethane. The next step doesn't bond to that mold release. And so what we have to do is we have to clean it after every step and then push our wheel through our quality control department, which is very central to our factory, because every step of the way has to be cleaned, checked, and insured for bonding for the next process.
And so as a final check, what are a couple tests that you guys will run to make sure that this wheel is in tip-top shape?
We typically check about three main things, among others, but the top three are run out, which is testing how the wheel wobbles based on the bearing centers. And then we actually put a dial indicator on about 1 out of 50 wheels, especially for the flex, probably 1 out of 30 for the flex. We put a dial indicator right on this sidewall here, and we can't have a deflection more than 10 thousandths of an inch. Now, 10 thousandths, to put it into perspective, is about 2.5 sheets of paper.
Thin.
thin. It's very thin, and we don't want a wobble that's more than that out of on run out. Another thing we check is the durometer. We get a Rex durometer gauge, and we make sure it comes up to hardness, which could take up to 24 hours to come all the way up to full hardness. And the other thing is color. We've got to make sure it matches the Pantones that were called out on the original spec sheet.
Awesome. And then so once it passes all those checks, then it gets sent out to inline warehouse and other places?
Yep, absolutely. It goes through quality control as our last step before packaging, and then out the door.
Awesome. Hey, well, thanks for taking the time out for us today. We really appreciate it.
Well, glad to be here.
You guys at home that want to check out more of these revision wheels, make sure you go to inlinewarehouse.com.